We decided to look through all the Liam MacCarthy level hurling teams at the moment to see, is there any one player in particular that teams couldn't do without? Now, that doesn't always mean it's the very best player. It might be someone who, in that position, there's no depth and you can't find someone who'd replace them at all. We'll start off with Tipperary, seeing as they're All Ireland champions, which obviously I don't like to bring up. But Tipperary are All Ireland champions. Is there who comes to mind for you when you think Tipperary couldn't do without this man?
Cathal Barrett's my number one there, without a doubt. I don't think Tipperary are blessed with cornerbacks. And I think even the year when he was off the panel and injured, they really, really struggled. I remember obviously he's a cornerback and I'm a cornerback, but I remember chatting to Jackie Tyrrell and he just said, I don't think Tipperary can win All-Ireland in 17. Was it 17 without him? I just don't think they can. He picks up the best. He picks up the best player, best forward on the other team, and he picks up the Alan Cadigans, Shane O'Donnell's, lads that a lot of other people couldn't pick up. As well as that, he's attacking every chance he gets. He's out in front. He's that fire rocket kind of that opposing team supporters wouldn't enamour himself to them, but they'd love to have him on side. Kind of like a Philly McMahon in his pomp with Dublin. Everybody outside of Dublin hated him and hated maybe his style, but if you'd say, geez, I'd love to have him on my team. And to me, Cathal Barrett is that player. I think he's as we've talked in other videos, he's one of those cornerbacks that a rarity that would be good enough to get hurler of the year from cornerback, which is unheard of really these days.
Actually, what backs up your point is last year against Limerick in the Munster final when Tipperary were beaten out the gate, he was one of those key players that was missing that day that might have helped carry the load a little bit. Brendan Maher had to go full back that day and did a good job on Aaron Gillan, and the fact that, and this will obviously sound like a bit of Burris Lee bias, but the fact that he was then able to play wing back the next day, man mark different players like Tony Kelly, TJ Reid in the All Ireland final, play as kind of the spare man at the back a lot against Laois. His versatility, has played midfield. You're kind of talking like a horse for any course there. He can be moved around as and when you need him. But I wonder, would it have to be Noel McGrath at this stage of the game? Because you can play him centre forward, full forward, midfield. He actually played wing back briefly in 2013 in that qualifier at Nolan Park. I think some people might remember. I remember him snapping a great ball that day. But I just think his game intelligence, the way he uses the ball, the way he punishes teams, the fact that he's probably bigger than people realise and he's able to burst lads with shoulders, as I think John Donnelly found out in the All-Ireland final last year when he was spilled. He more or less kind of caught Noel unawares, but John Donnelly is the guy who ended up on the floor. So I think I'll just about go with Noel McGrath there. There's probably a few more guys that we can talk about, but who else can Tipperary put in midfield, which has probably at times not always been the most obvious, there hasn't always been the most obvious answers there. But like, you can find forwards are 10 a penny in Tipperary. And before this year I might have thought, or last year I might have thought, Bonner Maher is irreplaceable because there's so many lads who can kind of put the knife through you, but who can actually set up the chances. But Tip go and win the All-Ireland without Bonner Maher, so therefore it's difficult to make a case for him. Seamus Callanan's a pretty obvious name to go with also. But I just think Tipperary always have scoring forwards. Finding someone like Noel McGrath is difficult.
Yeah, he's the quarterback that was setting up Callanan for a lot of goals, setting up his brother John for a lot of goals, and setting up Bubbles a lot of the time as well. And as you say, like, if Callanan was missing, it'd be a huge loss, but they'd have a ball of options that they could bring in. If Noel McGrath was missing, would they have those same options to go back midfield? I don't think, and they might maybe have to move Brendan Maher to midfield, or I don't know what they'd do. But if you're talking about, I don't think they could be without Cathal Barrett in his position, and similarly, I don't think they could afford to be without Noel McGrath in his position.
And obviously people can comment in and let us know how wrong we are and how it's somebody else and the reasons why. We'll move on to Cork. I couldn't make a case for anyone outside of Patrick Horgan.
Yeah, I have, maybe it's my corner-back bias, but I think Colin Spillane missing in 2019 it had a kind of a ripple effect on a load of other things happening. Their defence looked kind of porous throughout most of 2019 as a result of him missing. I think what he brings, he's a cornerback, but not maybe in the traditional guise. He's a bit of a kind of a buddy cornerback. He's big, strong. Again, like Barrett, he can take kind of the opposition's best player and usually negate him to a fair degree. But he offers an awful lot of brawn, maybe that's missing in maybe other aspects of the Cork defence. If Colin Spillane is around, there'll be no one coasting in. There'll be no commentary after about someone cutting through the Cork defence fairly easily. He'll leave you in the middle of next week. He's a brilliant ball player as well, capable of scoring from cornerback if he gets out the field at all, capable of giving long deliveries inside, very good on the ball as well. And I think the beauty about him as well, because of his height and his speed and his physical prowess, he's flexible enough that he could play 3, absolutely no bother as well. So he could play 2 or 3. And with the modern game, the way it's gone, usually a 2-man full back line, you need to be able to be mobile like that. I think his just how good he was shown last year nearly in his absence. I thought he was brilliant in 18, and I thought they really, really missed him last year.
Yeah, you make a compelling case. Seamus Harnedy is another guy that I think you couldn't do without in the forward line because of his ability to win ball, get goals, to get points, usually play as well. Shane Kingston is sort of working himself into the sort of player who they're not going to be able to do without either, because he's able to turn, go at you, score, power, pace. He has pretty much everything you want. But you're talking about the effect of not having Colin Spillane in 2019. What on earth would Cork have been like if they didn't have Patrick Horgan, who would step up in every which way that he actually does? It's taken him years to get to the point of being this good. As much and all as you make a compelling case for Colin Spillane, I just can't have it.
You're a forwards man.
Despite being a back my whole life.
Listen, I understand where you're coming from. I just kind of saw how much they missed him last year in defence, and I just thought, and even the early stage of this year's league, I think he's been outstanding. Obviously, Horgan is the obvious one, but this way, are Cork blessed with scoring forwards? They have a fair whack at him between Harnedy and Cadigan, and that's in the absence of Horgan. And even with the likes of Declan Dalton and a few more. Are they blessed with cornerbacks, fullbacks and defenders in general? Like defenders now, I mean defenders, out-and-out defenders. I don't think they are.
Sean O'Donoghue, Niall O'Leary, Leary Hayes. I think, look, maybe not quite to Colin Spillane's level, but you can name all the Cork forwards you like, but consistency is a problem with pretty much nearly every one of them. I take Harnedy out of that because I think he delivers more often than not. I think Shane Kingston can get there, but the rest of the lads you name, all brilliantly talented, but from one day to the next you haven't a clue what you're going to get, and Horgan delivers pretty much every single day. We'll move on to Waterford.
I don't agree with you on that. I would take Alan Cadigan out of that conversation that you're having there. Yeah, if he's fit and he's playing, he delivers.
Yeah, fair point, well made. I wouldn't disagree with that. I still think that Patrick Horgan over the years has delivered more, and that's possibly down to Alan Cadigan being injured a lot too. Waterford then. It's probably not the most obvious name, but I just think Callum Lyons, the way he's shaping up the last year and a half when he's been fit, the way he drives out from the back, his power, he's just like a ball of I don't know what he's like. He's just like, the way they always said that Jamie Heaslip was like a bull shark and he just had all the testosterone in the world. I think this lad just bursts out. There's just something. I think he's quite stylish, pacey, powerful, relentless, never say die, gets the ball out of 50-50 situations all the time. And as much and all as you could name more stylish players than him, I just think it's probably not even recognised yet how important he is, the likes of him and Conor Prunty. I know you're not necessarily going to go down the same road, but that'd be where I'd be going.
Yeah, no, I appreciate where you're coming from. There are guys that could potentially play for Waterford for the goods of the next decade and have shown plenty of promise so far. So I totally get that. I'm just wondering what year you think Callum Lyons will get Hurler of the Year. You've really nailed your colours to the max between him and Conor Prunty. I think, what are we saying, about 2025?
Yeah, around then. I mean, the only problem is I'm not sure that Waterford have enough around the rest of the field to get the All-Ireland by then. But I think he's of the quality to play for a team that would win an All-Ireland.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah. For me, if Waterford are to do anything over the next few years, and when they did do anything, one of the key players for them, and to me, I'd have him midfield on the best 15 in the country absolutely every day of the week. Jamie Barron, absolutely no doubt for me. Should have been Hurler of the Year in 17. And you're talking about Callum Lyons being a bundle of energy. This lad is just an energizer bunny up and down, and he's so stylish on the ball as well. His ability to take scores off left or right from distance as well. if he's fit and playing well, Waterford have a chance in any game. Was maybe not at his best last year. I just think he's an absolute Rolls Royce of a midfielder. I think he's deadly. His form in 16 and 17 was absolutely outstanding. He looked fairly re-energised the couple of league games I saw under Liam MacCarthy, and I'd be excited to see if he stays fit and injury free. I know he had a bit of a knock on his knee. He just adds so much energy for Waterford, particularly around that middle sector where you need him. So it's Jamie Barron for me.
The one thing about Limerick is that they apparently have a deeper squad than anyone else, but I think every team they have a chink in their armour somewhere along the lines. And I think if Sean Finn was out of that team for an extended period of time, he'd be very hard to replace. You've even seen when Mike Casey, especially in the last year or so, Mike Casey took over the full back in 2018 and he's been brilliant there. But this past season or so, you can see that if he was out, you could put Sean Finn in full back. He's kind of grown in stature that way, and I think he could be brilliant there. Like, take Cian Lynch out of midfield. You've still got a great midfield in Darragh O'Donovan and Will O'Donoghue. Take Galán out of the team. Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant and probably irreplaceable, but you still have a huge amount of dangerous forwards that you can put in there. If you take Sean Finn out of that team, the cupboard is starting to look a little bit more bare. There's definitely not the same level of depth.
Yeah, no, and especially not with Rich English out with Cruciate as well. He's probably going to be expected to do even more hurling because he could have a rookie in someone like maybe Aaron Costello who's impressed, but he's going to have a rookie maybe in the other corner. He can slip into full back. That's a blessing nowadays, and it's something that you have to be able to do. Like Brendan Matter, he's not just a 5. He's a 5, he's a 6, he's a 2, he's a 3, a 4 or a 7, or he's an 8 or a 9. Do you know what I mean? You have to be able to. You can't be pigeonholed in one position now anymore. You have to be flexible across positions. But in my opinion, like Limerick's whole game plan is built around Aaron Galán up front, and I wonder how would things go if he was missing. It's usually played to a pattern where he can get on the ball in that loop and get the scores that he does. And I'm just not sure. Like other lads will play well when he's on the pitch because he's getting special attention, shall we say? But if he wasn't on the pitch, I'd like to see in a big game how they'd adapt without him. I think he's their biggest scoring threat by a mile, as in consistently. He's the lad that could get 1-2 or 1-3 every game. Yeah, other lads would pop up here and there. Hegarty, Tom Morrison, these lads would pop up. Kyle Hayes, Peter Casey, but this guy is delivering the whole time. Then you have the question of, is David Reedy brought on to hit the freeze then if Galán is missing as well? So he's your free taker going too, or what way did it work out? Did they have someone coming up from the back to hit the freeze? I just think his loss would be monumental. I just think it would have knock-on effect on all over the field, to be honest, and on their game plan, which looks relatively bulletproof at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing, the way they work the ball out the field before pinning the ball in front of Galán to turn with, and like he's got a brilliant sidestep to get himself in a position to knock over an easy point. I don't know how many other forwards they have that would be comfortable taking the ball, sprinting away from goals, to be able to turn and comfortably shoot all the time. Yeah, it's probably a fair point there. I'm not sure how many others could do that the way he does, because he's such a threat. We'll move on to Kilkenny. It has to be TJ Reid, doesn't it? I mean, the lad takes the game to teams on his own, even against down to 13 men last year against Galway in the Leinster Championship. Just a heroic performance. I just don't think anyone else is in the conversation.
I think we could try to disagree on this, but I think it would be silly. Like I've great time for Owen Murphy. I think he'll go down as probably the best goalkeeper of all time in 6 or 7 years' time when he finishes up. But as a point you made to me off air, even Darren Brennan came in for a couple of games last year in the Leinster Championship and was very good, and they were still able to beat Dublin without Owen Murphy. Can Kilkenny beat anyone without TJ Reid, like any of those top counties? And I don't think so. I really don't. Like even the best performances I've ever seen, I think I went on record as saying it was the game against Galway last year. Like when you're going badly, when teams are going badly, he just seems to find another gear. He's the outball every time. If you're in trouble, he's the outball. I'd imagine, like, I don't know whether he's saying it in the dressing room or not, that Cody's saying to Owen Murphy, if you're in trouble, just hit it down to TJ. Just hit it down on top of TJ. And he'll come up with a solution. And his game is at a level that I don't think anybody could have seen him going to these sort of levels. Like you're talking Henry Shefflin territory now. That's been talked about regularly. And people are saying now maybe he's passing out Henry, given that he's playing on a and a bad team, not as good of a team as Shefflin would have played with, and he's still playing to this level. So I'd find it very hard to make an argument for anybody else.
So you're saying to me now that Henry Shefflin has gone from being the greatest of all time to not even being the best in his own club?
Yeah, I think someone had that tweeted out, didn't they, after one of TJ's games last year. I'm not saying he's not the greatest of all time. He's definitely, I think you'll have to wait till the end of TJ's career to make a judgment on that. But yeah, TJ's just top class. Club and county. And he's a man for every season, really, as well, you know?
Yeah, no, not going to debate that one. What about Laois? Obviously a number of good players, and people who haven't seen too many of their games, they're not going to be familiar with every single one of their players at all. But I just think over a run of years, he's consistently been really good. Captain, Paddy Purcell, his ability to drive up through the centre puts the best teams on the back foot at the top level. He's able to take a score. And there's a couple other lads that aren't too far off him, but I'd go with Paddy Purcell.
Yeah, Paddy Purcell, we've played right down the Ireland a good few times in club games. And like, if he gets the ball, you're goose. Like, if he gets the ball, he'll get the ball and just glide away from you like that. So you have to try and deny possession straight up, or you're in serious trouble. I think he's class. I think he could have been a track athlete, absolutely no bother. 400 metres, 800 metres. He just glides at it, this unbelievably fast pace, and is able to maintain it and go away from lads. I think Enda Rowland would be my MVP for Laois, though, I have to say. He's the conductor there at the back. His array of puckouts, absolutely outstanding. He can go long or short. He can score frees from his own 45. His deliveries, he put the ball in their mouth as well, and he's a brilliant shot stopper as well. He's the modern day goalie. Do you know, with some goalies now, their puckouts are that good, but their shot stopping maybe is lacking as a result. They're brilliant on the ball, but maybe they're not as brave. Maybe when it comes to that, the down and dirty stuff that they actually have to do, they claiming a ball in at the edge of the square when there's bodies all around. That's why I think he's the perfect kind of modern goalkeeper. Likes of him and Owen Murphy. They can kind of do everything that you need. All the throwback skills of a goalkeeper mixed with all the modern skills of being able to pick a pass, being able to keep possession, being able to find space. I'd say Enda Rowland would be Laois's most important player for me.
We'll move on to Galway then. It would seem obvious to say Joe Canning. And I am tempted to do it, but a bit like saying I thought before that Tipperary couldn't win All Ireland without maybe Bonner Maher carrying the water for a lot of the other players to turn it into wine. Galway won at Nolan Park last year without Joe Canning, and it's a place they'd struggled to win with him for the last 12 years or so. So in some way, shape or form, yes, they didn't get out of the Leinster Championship last year, but and that came down to basically not beating Carlow by enough and a pure fluke run of results towards the very, very end. Is it more like Daithí Burke? Is it Davy Burke? Is it Conor Whelan? Or is it Joe Canning?
No, it's Conor Whelan for me, to be honest with you. The main reason they didn't get out of Leinster last year was because Conor Whelan had to go off against Dublin, if you ask me. I think he probably would have tipped the balance. He probably would end up with 3 or 4 points, as he invariably does in every game.
Owen O'Donnell went off injured for Dublin as well, so if and buts are candy and nuts.
Fair point. He's been unbelievable since he burst onto the scene. What was it? The game down in Thurles, that was 14, was it? That was his first game? 14 as a 19-year-old, was it?
I think that was 2015 against Cork, wasn't it?
Cork, yeah. He's burst on as a 19-year-old. He's one of these lads that I kind of thought maybe after Galway won the All Ireland in 17, they're kind of thinking, maybe this like would hit a glass ceiling or whatever, or maybe people will find him out maybe a bit, but they just haven't been able to. He's an unorthodox kind of shooting style as well. I've often looked at how high he hits the ball at the post. It's like it goes over the post nearly every time, unbelievably high. I suppose it's to try and get the ball over the defender's hurl to make sure he's not blocked down. Rarely blocked down, rarely hooked. Rarely comes away with less than 2 scores in a game. Very, very rarely. And I think even in Canning's absence in the league this year, in the last couple of games, he was the one that kind of was taking the fight to everybody. I think he's a huge player. Even against Limerick in this year's league, Whelan was outstanding. Lads around him were struggling, and he was still outstanding. He's been a beacon of light, really, over the last couple of years, despite some up and down moments for the team itself. He's been very, very, very steady, and it's usually been like an 8 out of 10 in most games.
I'd say I'm going to go for Daithí Burke because the change from 2015 and and 16, and the fact that they were having so much trouble with the likes of Seamus Callan, and he was able to go in there and do a one-man job in, when you're isolated in space against a brilliant player. I think he was one of the huge turning points in bringing them from a pretender to an All-Ireland winner. So I give it just about to Dahi Burke. He can play anywhere you want, but when fullback is such a critical position these days, and you can pretty much put him back there against anybody, I think that's as irreplaceable as it comes on it. Maybe Shane O'Neill will put Grode McInerney back there, and we'll find out actually, I was going to say in the middle of the summer what he's really like, but who knows what way the All-Ireland will run the next time it happens. It could be in the depths of winter, and who knows, maybe someone else will operate perfectly back at full back. So I'd go with Dahi Burke. Dublin then, I think we were just talking about it off air before we recorded, and we struggled to actually name someone too obvious. And I think part of it is the fact that they're probably a little bit shy of winning Leinster and doing much more at the moment, precisely because too many players have actually opted out of the panel. So when we're talking about who's too important to go on without, they've probably lost a few of those players already. So at the moment, in that forward line, it's hard to name any stellar player, for example, that they couldn't do without, because there probably aren't stellar names in there. Midfields, the options aren't really there. Even like Darragh O'Connell and Sean Tracy haven't been part of the panel this year, and they might have been the midfield this year. So, or they were the midfield last year at times. So it's a tough one, isn't it, with Dublin?
Yeah, if I was going picking Dublin's most important player, if I was to put three as a shortlist, they'd all be in the backs, realistically. And that's probably an indictment of them. I'd probably be looking at maybe even four. Paddy Smith, Owen O'Donnell, Chris Crummy and Sean Moran would be my four. From midfield upwards, really, really struggling, and that's why Dublin would beat any team from 1 to 9, would beat most teams from 1 to 9, but they can't keep the ball up in the forward line a lot of the time against the better teams, and they don't have 2 or 3 lads that are going to kill you. They don't have, just going down through the list here, they don't have an Aaron Gillan or a Conor Whelan or a Tony Kelly or any of these type of players. For me, it would be Owen O'Donnell, just for what he offers, coming out, bursting out. Usually, he's kind of like, he's one of these weird kind of backs in the sense that when he gets the ball, it's almost like an inspirational kind of a ball that he gets, and he usually throws somebody out of the way while doing it as well. He's a textbook defender, has all the skills of the game. You'll rarely see him in trouble. If he's in trouble, chances are it's probably someone else's fault out the pitch that's not doing enough for him and not doing enough for the backs in general. Owen O'Donnell for me, but just the fact that I can't think of anybody consistently from midfield up, that's not a great sign for the direction they're going in.
Like Danny Sutcliffe could be up at that level, but it just hasn't quite happened in the last year or two, and he has now been named captain, so we'll see. Owen O'Donnell probably got nominated for an All-Star last year when Paddy Smith probably deserved it. But Owen O'Donnell is probably the player that is probably at that highest level in their backline. I don't think we've mentioned Clare just yet, have we?
No, and I was just going down to my list, and I was thinking that you were going to leave out Clare, and there was going to be a big furore down there again.
I wouldn't do it to them, because they'd obviously dance all over me if I did it. Any old excuse, and they get very upset with me.
Yeah, like Clare for me, I thought about it, and I had one name written down, but I've gone to another name, because I just think this lad is Mr. Consistency. Basically, since scoring 3-3 in the All-Ireland final, I think Shane O'Donnell has been absolutely outstanding. And I think he's been outstanding in years that they've struggled, and he just always delivers. He's even last year coming back from Harvard, and he was brilliant in that first game against Waterford. It was bound to catch him. The lack of hurling was bound to catch him against maybe a better class of opposition in the summer, and it did. But like this year, even, he's been brilliant. I just think over the last 7 or 8 years, he's been brilliant. He's one of these players as well, amazing. Like, doesn't have an all-star, and if he doesn't get one, he'll probably be the greatest forward never to have got one. So hopefully he will get one. But I just think what he offers in attack, like I was chatting to James Barry last week, and he just said, I never liked marking Shane O'Donnell. Shane O'Donnell and Alan Cadigan, those boys would absolutely break your heart. They just had that where they get the ball and be nifty, and they could have the potential to leave you for dust. And that's the thing with him. He's so elusive, and I said to you before, I think he's one of the most foulable players in the GAA. People are just so afraid when he gets the ball. They want to foul him. I'd love to go back over his Clare career and see what he's earned in frees down through his career. I think he's a brilliant forward. And I just think while other lads have peaks and troughs. And I'm thinking of Tony Kelly as well, and mainly he'd have peaks and troughs, and the peaks are unbelievably good and unbelievably high, but the troughs are maybe sometimes when he needs to be up at another level. Whereas Shane O'Donnell is consistently brilliant. I think he's been consistently very, very good since that 2013 replay.
You basically took my choice as well. I thought you were going to go down the Tony Kelly angle, and it's precisely because of the capacity to do explosive things. I think Pat O'Connor is someone who's been very good over the years, and now that he's looks like he's going to be centre back, I think that's kind of a pivotal one for Clare because they're looking for that. David McInerney has gone out to midfield in the 2020 league, has looked really good. But yeah, it's very hard to kind of go against Shane O'Donnell, even though not everyone will necessarily agree. But when you go down to it, you've gone through it there in detail. I think I'd have to agree on that one. Wexford then. I'm going to have to go with Kevin Foley here. And we've probably talked about it before, that the impact that he's had since he went sweeper, that Sean Murphy's been very good since he went back to one of the sort of marking roles, and obviously he has license to go forward as well. But his impact in the sweeper role had definitely lessened, and you actually wondered where Wexford were going. Kevin Foley's gone in sweeper, and he's taken it on to a new level because he's so good when he's kind of playing back there as a sweeper number one, the main role of it. He sometimes comes out then and picks someone up for a puck out. He then also carries the ball up the field. He has license to go forward, and he's just so good at it that I'd have to go with Kevin Foley.
Yeah, I don't have Kevin Foley down, but I find it hard to argue with that. He's just brought a totally different dimension to Wexford. He's brought the attacking element to a defender. He obviously minds the house. He's reading of the game, his position, and his top class, and he allows other lads to flourish, while also just being brilliant on the ball and getting forward to get a score as well. The player I've gone it for, though, is Dermot O'Keefe, who is just Asher. I've never seen anybody be able to find space like he finds space. You look at a game and you can actually, when you can see things happening and a Wexford man is on the ball about 70 yards out and you're looking and you're like, who's that out there in the space? And O'Keefe is just standing out there, ball popped out to him, and he never seems to be rushed taking a score. He's always able to find those spots. I think the first year he played wing back in 2017 in Davies' first year, he ended up with 313 from play in the championship, which is absolutely outstanding. I think last year was probably his best year. He's up and down. He's always putting, whether it's wing back or midfield, or even he's played wing forward at times, he always puts his man on the back foot. And he just, with the way Wexford play, the inside forwards won't always be the ones that break your heart. So they need people like Dermot O'Keefe. They need Paddy Foley contributing from half back even as well. But O'Keefe has just been able to drive forward the whole time. He's put up massive scores, and he got a deserved All-Star last year. So to me, he's their most important player.
And I'm sure plenty of people will think that Lee Chin or maybe Conor MacDonald or even Rory O'Connor might have been the options there. And please let us know. So that's our hurlers that teams can't do without. And God knows when we'll actually see them in action again. But that's our thoughts for now.